Hello, welcome once again to What's Hot with Tranquility. I am your host, Pete Pardo. Today is Monday, January the 11th. We're here once again with another kind of special edition. We're going to deviate from our normal routine because, again, here we have like 2 weeks in a row. We've got the passing of a rock icon, a legend in the music business. The one, the only David Bowie passed away last night at the age of 69 due to a lengthy battle with cancer. One that he kept pretty quiet. I've been a Bowie fan for a long, long time and have followed his career pretty closely, and I didn't even know he was ill. He just released his brand new album, it seems like just a few days ago, and now here we are. We wake up Monday morning, and this true rock star is no longer with us. So to kind of help us with the grieving process, I'm sure everybody's out there listening to classic Bowie music, Bowie albums, watching concert clips on YouTube, or however each one of us individually wants to deal with the passing of this truly great icon in rock and roll. Go ahead and do it. Let's celebrate the music of David Bowie, his life, his career. Today we're just going to take a few minutes to kind of talk about David Bowie and some of the great music he's given us over the years. And as we generally do on this show, we try to look at albums, classic albums. I'm going to quickly go through some of the albums that are nearest and dearest to me. He's got so many of them. We obviously don't have a lot of time to go through his entire career as far as his recorded works go, but I picked out a bunch of my kind of favorites to just kind of look back on and, with a lot of love on the great career of this really great man. We're going to start with Space Oddity. For just about everybody, their introduction to Mr. Bowie. And, the iconic title track is a classic of kind of late 60s, early 70s psychedelia, folk, prog. It's got a little bit of everything. Got Rick Wakeman on keyboards on it. The rest of the album is pretty mellow, pretty folky. I don't think Mr. Bowie had truly found his identity yet, but it was just kind of starting to peek through, especially with the title track. This was followed by, for me, probably my favorite Bowie album, or at least one of the top two or three. It's The Man Who Sold the World, and here is where he hooked up with Mick Ronson on guitar, and this is probably his most rocking album. There's a lot of really heavy moments on here, considering the time period. You had acts like Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and Deep Purple and Uriah Heep and so on, who were coming out with some truly heavy material. Bowie, for the one and only time in his career, would almost try to equal some of those acts. And, Width of a Circle, All the Madmen, Savior Machine, and of course, the iconic title track. So just top to bottom, the beginnings of glam rock, hard rock, it's all kind of here. Also the beginnings of a really, really great band, which would later be called the Spiders from Mars. We'll get to them in a second. Another really, really strong album, another favorite, is Hunky Dory. The glam starts to kind of creep in a little bit more, less bombastic and heavy than the album that came before it. But it got, you got the classic tune changes, just a lot of really, really strong tunes. That was the big hit from here. Andy Warhol is also on here as well. Another great song. Queen Bitch is great. Song for Bob Dylan. Again, as we would see from Bowie throughout his career, every album kind of was completely different than the one before, which is why they always called him the musical chameleon. Not only did his appearance kind of change from year to year, the music was always changing, always morphing into something else, and I think that's what made him such an endearing character to so many people for so many years. So from there, from Hunky Dory, we go to the Pinnacle Superstardom. He was basically on top of the world with the Ziggy Stardust album, along with his band Ziggy and the Spiders from Mars, featuring, of course, Mick Ronson on guitar, Trevor Bolder on bass, and Mr. Woody on drums. Sadly now, this classic lineup, this classic band, is only survived by Mr. Woodmansey on drums, as Trevor Bolder passed away a couple years ago. Ronson passed away in the early 90s, and now David Bowie is gone. But again, top to bottom, this is a classic rock legendary album. It's a must. I mean, 5 years, Soul Love, Moon Age Daydream, one of the best tunes ever. Starman, another one. It Ain't Easy, Lady Stardust, Star, Hang On to Yourself, Ziggy Stardust, Suffragette City, Rock and Roll Suicide. Top to bottom, it is a glam rock dream fest, one of the all-time classic albums. From there, another absolute classic album, Aladdin Sane. Another one, Watch That Man, the title track, Drive-In Saturday, Panic in Detroit, completely underrated tune. Cracked Actor, Time, The Prettiest Star, Let's Spend the Night Together, a remake of the Rolling Stones hit. The Gene Genie, staple, and Lady Grinning Soul. So, again, here, he's in complete glam rock mode here, which will continue for one more album. Diamond Dogs. I can remember when this album first came out, and that cover was so controversial. And I remember being a pretty young kid and hearing about this album. I had cousins who were a couple years older than me who actually had this LP, and I remember looking at the album and listening to it at the time, and I was kind of like, wow, this is pretty out there stuff. But another really, really, really solid album. Future Legend, Diamond Dogs, the title track is great. Sweet Thing, another really, really good song. Candidate, Rebel Rebel, another staple of FM rock radio for many, many years. Rock and Roll With Me, We Are the Dead, 1984, another completely underrated tune. Big Brother, and Chant of the Ever Circling Skeletal Family. So with Diamond Dogs, all of a sudden the Ziggy era, the Spiders from Mars era, it's all kind of going by the wayside. Mr. Bowie is transforming himself yet again into more of a R&B and soul guy with Young Americans. Music here totally different, much more pop, much more R&B and soul, like I mentioned. The title track, Young Americans, was a big hit. Wind, Fascination, Right, Somebody Up There Likes Me, Across the Universe, Can You Hear Me, and the iconic Fame. Another one of my favorite tunes from Mr. Bowie. He would go on to release a bunch more albums throughout the 70s. Some kind of experimented a lot. He worked with Robert Fripp and Brian Eno, so he was kind of going off in all sorts of different directions. He also had the very strong album called Heroes, as well as Station to Station, some very, very experimental, different albums. So the Young Americans kind of era that quickly morphed into other stuff, and then in the early '80s, he decided to kind of change gears yet again, and he put out probably the biggest album of his career, or if not the biggest, in the top two, and that was the Let's Dance album, which. He hooks up with Stevie Ray Vaughan on guitar, this Texas blues guitar player, who's also no longer with us, who passed away in a plane crash in the early '90s. And this was just ripped up the pop charts, the R&B charts, the dance charts. You had these great melodies, catchy tunes, stinging Ray Vaughan guitars, great vocals by Bowie. Modern Love, China Girl, again, also some new wave flavors on here as well. The title track, Let's Dance, Without You, Ricochet, Criminal World, Cat People, and Shake It. Again, just a really groove-laden album that saw Bowie just go in a completely different direction. He would go on to release many, many albums over the course of the next 30 years since the release of Let's Dance, and I don't actually have all of them. There's quite a few of them, but I do have a lot of them. And again, they're all different. They're all very varied. He experimented with ambient music, always popping a little bit of glam, some world music, a little bit of hip hop here and there, some industrial. He did that great stuff with Tin Machine, which was another band he put together that was kind of like a pretty loud rock industrial type band. So Mr. Bowie has kind of done it all. Throughout his career, I was very happy to see him live once. I caught him at PNC Art Center down in New Jersey. I'm going to say 8-10 years ago, at least that. that was a pretty moving experience. I've been a fan for a long time. It was great to say that I saw him at least that once. And, unfortunately, there'll never be another time. But his music lives on forever in the hearts, the minds of millions of fans across the world. So today we say goodbye to David Bowie, the true rock chameleon, a Hall of Famer, a legendary icon. We're losing way too many of them. Last week was Lemmy. This week it's Mr. Bowie. If you're someone who's about my age, I'm 50. A lot of our heroes in the music world, one by one, are kind of slipping away from us because you get to be that age, and it's kind of what happens. It's really sad, and it takes a big chunk of your heart when they leave. But like I said, the music lives on, so we celebrate the life, the career of David Bowie, dead at the age of 69 after a battle with cancer. We'll miss you. R.I.P. I know you're up there singing with the best, so take care. And that'll do it for today's episode of What's Hot with Tranquility. I'm your host, Pete Pardo. We'll see you next week for our regularly scheduled program. Till then, be safe. Take care. Bye-bye.